What's going on, YouTube? In this video, I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all some tips while you OTR over the road. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and let's get into the video.
Yeah, I've wanted a lot of things that I couldn't have. I've done a lot of things that I shouldn't have. Yeah, but I live with no regrets because I wouldn't.
Alright, YouTube. So on this tip, always do your pre-check inspection. You know, what you're going to do is you're going to start the truck up and you want to go ahead and check your tires, you know, check under the hood, you know, make sure your lights are working, because last thing you want is to be stopped by DOT and your headlights are out or tail lights are out, and you can say you didn't know, it just went through, but hey, you know, let's not take that chance. You know, you want to check and make sure your gas caps are there, because people will steal your gas caps. It's happened to me, it's happened to a friend of mine. So you want to make sure you're there, because, you know, if you get pulled over, DOT will give you a ticket if you don't have a gas cap on, because you could be leaking diesel on the highway. But, you know, and there's no excuse for that one, because you should have checked before you got in the truck and cranked it up. So they're going to give you that ticket. So always do your pre-trip inspection. You know, make sure there's no oil or leaking fluids underneath the truck. But let's get into the next tip. All right, YouTube. In this tip, you always want to make sure you have the right protective equipment with you at all times, because you never know if a shipper or receiver is going to require you to have some boots, you know, at least some boots. Some of them say steel-toe boots. You know, they might require you to have a reflective vest, you know, so, you know, you definitely want to have a vest in your truck. Some shippers, receivers may want you to have, you know, eyewear. You know, some of them may want you to have a hard hat. You know, some of these stuff you can get at a truck stop, you know, but, you know, some things like boots and reflective vest, you know, they won't even let you on the yard to get unloaded or loaded if you don't have those type of things with you. So just keep some boots and some, you know, at least a vest. You know, other stuff, you can get it as needed at the truck stop. All right. All right, YouTube. In this tip, you always want to make sure you have your paperwork in order. So keep one of these, a binder, 3-ring binder, or a folder in your truck with all your paperwork in it. And paperwork, I'm talking about like your MC certificate, you know, your proof of insurance, if you're leasing or renting, you know, that rental lease agreement, you know, your cab card, you know, just everything you want to have in there. I even got my UCR in here as well. You know, your DOT medical card, that's important. You know, I got a copy of mine's in here. You know, and just keep some extra, some driving logs, just in case your ELD is malfunctioning for the day. But nothing is, you know, looks more professional to a DOT officer or a state trooper than having everything in one nice binder to hand them, versus searching all over the truck for papers. You know, you're supposed to be a professional driver out there, so, you know, you got to act accordingly. And trust me, just being professional, you know, with the DOT officer or state trooper can go a long way in getting you out of a sticky situation and avoiding some tickets. They might just go ahead and let you go because, you know, they admire how professional and prepared that you are, you know. So just keep that in mind. All right, YouTube. On this next tip, it's about dropping off your loads. You always want to try to make sure, you know, you can get the load there on time. And, you know, I like to get to my destination as early as possible, meaning that, you know, that if it's due, you know, it may be due 8 to 4, but I don't want to drop it off at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, because that decreases my chances of getting another load that day significantly. So I want to maximize my hours, you know, my hours of service, so that I'm able to drop that thing off first thing that next morning. Usually if it's, you know, 500, 600 miles, you know, usually you can do that, you know, in your 11-hour driving period, you know, 14-hour window. You usually can do that in that window, you know. So I'm going to try to maximize my hours on that day so I can be able to be in position to drop it off first thing that next morning. So, you know, I'm empty, you know, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. So, you know, I can find a load before noon, or, you know, before it gets too late. If I have to deadhead, it's not an issue. I can deadhead an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, to get to a pickup before it gets, you know, 3, 5 o'clock. So just keep that in mind. You know, always plan your trip, you know, ahead, and you'll be set up for success. So now that we talked about planning our trip, let's talk about checking in with brokers and shippers and receivers. So what you always want to do is you got to check in with your brokers, check out with your brokers. And what I mean by that is, after you book the load and you sign a rate confirmation, usually they want to know ETA. But when you get to the shipper's site, you want to go ahead and let them know I'm on site. And then you want to let them know when you're loaded up. What that does is allow them to have a timestamp. You got there at 10 a.m. and you left at 11 a.m. So you was there for an hour. Let's say, for instance, in this situation, you was there for 3 hours. In some situations or with certain brokers, depending on whatever the rate con says, you may be due detention pay if you're there for more than 2 hours, and it could be extra 25 to 35 to whatever is agreed upon on the rate confirmation or the carrier packet. So, but if you don't have a timestamp with the broker, or if you hadn't signed in at the shipper, then or receiver, then there's no proof that you was there. You could say, hey, I was here for 3 hours, and they were like, well, you didn't check in with us. You was on site. You didn't. There's no paperwork signing in at the shipper. So it's their word versus your word. So always let them know when you're on site and when you're loaded up, and then when you're on site at the receiver and you're unloaded. So in that case, there's no disputing on their end that you are deserved your detention pay. And next thing you want to do as well is always confirm the pickup and the drop windows with the shippers and receivers. Trust me, because this happened to me. Broker told me I can drop the load off anytime. I got there at a receiver at noon. The receiver said, you had a 10 a.m. appointment, so you got to come back tomorrow. Oh, man. But the broker told me I could drop it off anytime. Nope, you had a 10 a.m. appointment. They said our floor is loaded up with shipments or freight, and we have nowhere to put your shipment because you missed your appointment window, so come back tomorrow. So always, even if the broker have the times on the rate confirmation, always call ahead and check the shipping and receiving times. Like on a load that I did yesterday, they said I had an 11 a.m. appointment. I showed up at 11 a.m. and everybody was on lunch break. The security guard said, I don't know why they told you to show up at this time, because this is our designated lunch break for the whole factory. So did I have an 11 a.m. appointment? No, I had to wait, 30, 45 minutes till everybody came back from their lunch break. So always call ahead, confirm the pickup and drop windows. And a lot of times the brokers, they'll decrease the window because they want to make sure that you can get it, you can pick it up or drop it off between a certain time, which is, on their end, they want to play a little bit safe so that, they have a buffer like, okay, even if he's a little bit late, he's still within the shipper's receiver's window. But always call ahead. Even if you're going to be a little bit late picking up or dropping off, call ahead. They might be willing to stay a little later for you. It's not guaranteed. It depends on, the company, the factory. It's a huge factory, a lot of employees, and, everything is managed, or is it mom and pop, warehouse, 1 or 2 employees. It all depends is what I'm saying. But always call ahead and confirm the shipping and receiving times from the shipper and receiver, and not necessarily always depend on what the broker said. That's my advice. All right, YouTube. So another thing you want to stay on top of is managing your electronic logging device, your ELD. It's going to be very, very important. Whenever you get in your truck, you always need to make sure that you hit drive, or that you're on duty, when you're leaving. For my ELD, if I leave, it automatically puts me on duty. Automatically will put me in drive, starting my clock. So I always want to make sure I'm touching my ELD, turning it on, turn it off. If I'm using a personal conveyance or I'm off duty, I want to make sure I do that, because what will happen is, I can edit my electronic logging device, but not if I'm automatically put on duty or automatically put into driving time, at least with my ELD service provider, which is Geotep. Other service providers may be different. You can edit your logs, but there may be some things you can't edit in there. So you always want to be on top of your ELD. Every time you get in the truck, you need to be putting yourself on or off duty, or before you drive off. Because even I've been doing this for almost 4 months now, and I still forget myself. So if I'm putting myself on personal conveyance because I'm off duty, unassigned, no load, and I may be going to get something to eat or going to a grocery store, just driving around town, I don't want to be on duty burning my clock or starting my clock, because say for instance I've been off duty for 6 hours and then all of a sudden I forget to put my ELD on personal conveyance. Now it put me back on duty, so it just negated the whole 6 hours I was off duty. So now my clock has to restart, and I might not be able to edit that. So that kind of throws everything off. Now I have to go to paper logs. If I get pulled over by DOT, I have to explain this. So you can see how it can be a bit of an issue. So another thing is, when you're at the shipper or receiver and you're not being loaded up, you should go off duty. Anytime you're not actively, working, go off duty. You should be on your break, saving your ELD times. For instance, when you go to a hotel, let's say if you want to go get something to eat, use personal conveyance. You can use, don't put yourself on duty or using your driving time to go to a restaurant, grocery store, or go get something to eat. So you just want to manage your ELD time the best way possible, so you can maximize your driving hours and your on-duty hours, because you only can drive for 11 hours and a 14-hour work period. So you can be on duty for 14 hours, but you only can drive 11 of those hours. And also remember, you got to take your 8-hour breaks, so want to make sure, after 8 hours, you got to take a 30-minute break. But we can do a whole video about ELDs, but just, make sure you're on top of your electronic logging device. Hey y'all, so to be quite honest, a lot of times when I'm out riding OTR, I avoid a lot of the truck stops. And we've talked about this in other of my videos. I use an app called Gas Buddy, which shows me the cheapest diesel prices, around the area or along my route that I'm traveling. That way I can plan it out. I can get diesel 30, 40, 50 cents cheaper than a truck stop, and especially with, these good old box trucks, 26 feet, I can get into the smaller gas stations that the tractor trailers, the semi trucks can't get into. So yeah, use the app called Gas Buddy. It'll let you know the prices at, these different gas stations for diesel, and it can save you, a lot of money. That's just a tip. The Gas Buddy app is this app right here. So use it, save some money. All right, YouTube. So here's a tip about going through the scales. One, do you have to stop? Yes. If you have a vehicle that's over 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating, you have to stop at the scales. If you're in Florida, you have to stop at the agricultural weigh stations as well. I learned that the hard way. But, just a tip going through those scales, make sure you kind of maintain about 100 feet of distance, because, you don't want to get pulled in, to have to be weighed and maybe potentially inspected because you're following too close to another truck or car or vehicle in front of you, and it throw it off the weight. Especially at some of these, some states have, weigh in motion, meaning that they weigh you while you're driving down the highway, so, and it lets you know whether you can bypass or have to pull in to be, officially weighed. So, if you make sure you're not following too close to another truck, so you don't have to worry about that. And two, there's an app called DriveWise, which you can pay a monthly subscription to avoid having to go through some scales or weigh stations. Not all of them, but I'm just saying, you can just download this app called DriveWise, and you pay a monthly subscription, and you can avoid that. Hey, if I can save time and the stress of having to go through a weigh station, might skip 1, 2, or 3, why not, for the small, money a month to do it. It's not that expensive. So yeah, that's just a little tip, because I know every time I go through a weigh station I get a little bit of anxiety. So you never know when you might get pulled in for an inspection. But yeah, be safe out there, y'all. That's that tip. All right, YouTube. In this tip, we're talking about using a truck GPS. To be honest, a lot of times I don't even use a truck GPS. I use Google Maps. and I usually don't have too much of an issue. There are times I'm going through areas that trucks probably, residential areas that trucks probably shouldn't go through. But, to think about it, I'm driving a 26-foot box truck. It's, usually, this is like a moving truck. If somebody was moving, into their house, a truck can go through there. And a lot of times, they don't want tractor trailers going through there because truck trailers can get stuck. We're in a 26-foot box truck. And a lot of times, it'll let you know. There might be, on the sign, it might say, no vehicles over 2 axles or no 3-axle vehicles. Our box truck is only 2 axles. Got dually tires in the back and, singles in the front. So we 2-axle vehicle, no issue. A lot of times they may tell you the weight, no vehicles over 26,000 pounds. My truck is less than 26,000 pounds. Or, or if I'm empty, I mean, it's even, way less than that. So what I'm saying is, you might not always need a truck GPS. But if you're in the Northeast, you definitely may need a truck GPS. If you're in the Northeast, if you're going through areas like New York City, there's so many bridges, and then parkways, New York City, New Jersey, going up, 95, definitely be careful. I-95, definitely be careful up there. You definitely want to probably turn on that truck GPS up in New York and New Jersey area, because you will get pulled over if you're on a highway that you're not supposed to be on or a parkway you're not supposed to be on. So in those areas, definitely want to have a truck GPS for sure. But that is that for this tip. All right, YouTube. Here's a tip for you guys. Make sure you understand, the compliance rules and regulations before going on the road. Make sure you understand, the EOD hours of service. 11 hours of driving, 14-hour work day. You got to take a 30-minute break after 8 hours. That is so crucially important, because if you get pulled over, I would hate to see you get put out of service or get a ticket from DOT, because those tickets are not cheap. You don't want to get put out of business before you even get started in your business. But that's another tip for y'all. All right, YouTube. On this tip, we're going to talk about always make sure you secure your loads. And to secure your loads, you need the proper equipment. You're going to need some straps. So I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, actually 8 straps. I have another one in the car, which is kind of jammed up. I got to fix. But I have 8 straps. You're going to need these straps to secure your loads. And you're going to need some load bars. You can get these load bars from Amazon, Truck Stop, pretty cheaply. Oh, this equipment right here is actually some chains. If you're going through, areas like Colorado, Utah, Wyoming in the wintertime, some chains to put on your tires if you're going through those high mountainous areas, icy areas, snow areas. So definitely want to have that equipment. That ain't got nothing to do with securing your load, but that's just being safe. But anyway, so you always want to make sure you secure your loads. Definitely empty right now. But yeah, usually when you have pallets in here, you want to make sure that you secure your loads. If you have an even number of pallets and no, in that even number and size, you can just put, a load bar up and you'd be good to go. Make sure it's nice and tight. When you have an uneven number of pallets, usually what I do is I put a load bar across the even side, or let's say if it's 3 pallets, I put in front of the first 2 pallets that are stacked evenly, I put a load bar. And then the 3rd pallet I'll strap, because I don't want it going left or right, because trust me, sometimes you'll get some light freight and it'll be sliding along the truck. And I had one time I had these carts from Amazon, and every time I turned, the cart just bam slammed against the left side of the truck, and then I turned right, bam slammed against the right side of the truck. So you kind of want to make sure you strap those things down so it's not sliding all over the place, especially since there's not an even pallet next to it. Or another thing is you might have a tall pallet and a short pallet, so the pallet will flip over on top of it. So you want to strap that tall pallet so it doesn't flip over. So you kind of start to learn in this business, when you're moving freight, once a pallet or 2 flips over on you and you got to pick them up, or but always you don't want to damage nobody's freight, because you don't want an insurance claim against you. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but just secure your freight. Use your straps, use your load bars, don't be lazy. All right, YouTube, this is an example of what I'm talking about. So what I'm gonna do is put a load bar in between right here, and then I gotta strap this pallet with my straps. If I don't, the pallet can flip over to the left because there's nothing beside it to steady it up when I make turns. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, see, here we go, YouTube. Like I said, load bar right here. Keep that one secure, those two secure. Then we got the strap right here so it don't fall over to the left, and it ain't coming back. So it's good to go. All right, let's talk about this. Always do an inventory check before you leave the shipper and receiver, because there's been times I've lost a load bar. I got 3 now. I should have, because I lost a load bar. And truly, you only need probably 2 load bars. You know, I just acquired those somehow. They left them on my truck. I just kept it moving. Anyway, so yeah, always do inventory check, because I lost a load bar. I almost forgot my whole pallet jack. Whole little pallet jack. I almost, you know, at a shipper or receiver. I hadn't forgot it, but I almost did, you know. So always do inventory check. Make sure you got your straps, your load bars. And then there's sometimes you're going to be at a shipper receiver who don't want you on their dock due to the pandemic or due to, you know, safety reasons. So they're going to load you up, you know, especially they used to 18 was coming in and just backing it in, and, you know, they give them the green light when they're loaded up and they drive away. So they don't even come on the dock. Usually with us box truck guys, you know, we got a pallet jack. You know, sometimes forklift drivers don't want to drive in here, or you don't want them driving in there, your preference. So, you know, but what I'm trying to say is you don't see them load or unload your truck. So if they load up your truck and put a seal on it, you don't know if they even put your pallet jack in there or not. So always ask, like, hey, did you put my pallet jack in there? You know, my load bars, all that stuff. You know, because if they seal it up and you get 500 miles down the road and now you're missing a $300 pallet jack, you're going to be kind of upset. It happens. So yeah, just always do inventory check when you're checking in and checking out of the shippers and receivers. But yeah, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this video. If you made it this far in the video, guys, go ahead and like, subscribe, and stay tuned for future videos. Peace.
Everything I used to dream being real right now. If it wasn't working, I'ma work it out.